1, 2.
An hour ahead, but it's
Mic
proper.
check. 1, 2, 1, 2, check.
Perfect. There's 6 questions total. I'm just saying that for now. So
How many of us are here?
there are 4 of which. Oh no, just this.
Okay, never mind. 3.
Oh.
Bonjour tout le monde. Happy Sunday. Thank you for being with me. There's no hiding it. This has been a difficult year for Canadians. 2020 will be remembered as the year a global pandemic came to our shores and took the government completely by surprise. It will be remembered as a year of floor closures, rising unemployment, and uncertainty. Worse, it will be remembered as a year of grief for the nearly 12,000 Canadian families who have already lost a loved one. Cette année a été difficile pour tous, des plus jeunes aux plus âgés. On va se souvenir d'elle comme étant l'année de la pandémie qui a pris ce gouvernement par surprise. C'est une année de fermeture d'entreprises et de chômage. Mais pire encore, c'est une année triste pour presque 2000 familles canadiennes qui ont perdu un être cher. Mais les Canadiens ont montré du courage. Ils ont respecté les consignes et ont aidé les petites entreprises. Ils ont été là pour leurs amis et leurs familles. Through it all, Canadians have shown courage and fortitude. They've respected directions from our public health authorities. They've supported struggling local businesses when they could, and they've helped their neighbors to make these difficult times a bit easier. But Canadians are hurting, and they have only asked one thing of this government. One simple thing. Where is the plan? Tomorrow, Deputy Prime Minister Freeland will debut the Liberal plan for reimagining the Canadian economy. But it will not be a plan for getting Canadians back to work, and it will not be a plan for helping shuttered small businesses stay open. Because there is no plan for the economy without a plan for rapid testing and vaccines. Tomorrow, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals will not present a plan to get back to normal. Demain, quand la ministre Freeland présentera sa mise à jour de l'économie, les Canadiens vont se poser une question importante. Où est le plan? C'est la triste vérité. Sans plan pour les tests rapides et les vaccins, il n'y a pas de plan pour l'économie. Il y a des millions de Canadiens qui sont. Where is Justin Trudeau's plan? Where is the certainty that Canadians deserve? Within days, people across the United Kingdom and across the United States will start receiving vaccines. But in Canada, the Prime Minister and his Minister of Health cannot even tell Canadians how many freezers they've secured to secure the Pfizer vaccine. And the vaccine companies have been clear. They aren't shipping anything to Canada until we have a clear plan and equipment in place for the safe and effective deployment of vaccines. Right now, there is no plan for receiving vaccines. There is no plan for distributing vaccines to Canadians. There isn't even a plan of who will get the vaccine first. Frontline workers like nurses or doctors, the elderly, the vulnerable. The Trudeau government has not shared any of this with Canadians. And what happened to the CanSino deal? Why did the Trudeau government put all of their eggs in the China basket for their vaccine? Why did Trudeau trust China with our health? Where are the answers? Where is the clarity that Canadians deserve? The United Kingdom is ready to start inoculating people in the coming days, and Canada is still standing still and not even answering questions. This government looks like a deer caught in the headlights. While the Americans and the British are talking about mass vaccination throughout December and January, our government is now talking about getting Canadians vaccinated by September. Le manque de courage des libéraux a des efforts réels sur la population canadienne. Ils n'ont pas voulu se battre pour avoir des vaccins rapidement. Le résultat, alors que les Américains et les Britanniques parlent de vacciner leur population en décembre et janvier, Justin Trudeau parle de septembre prochain. 10 mois de plus d'hôpitaux en difficulté et de CHSLD à risque. 10 mois de perte d'emploi. That's 10 more months of uncertainty. 10 more months of businesses closing, mental health challenges, families remaining separated, and workers not knowing when their shifts will be canceled. 10 more months of the horrible consequences of lockdowns, from domestic violence to drug overdoses. Canadians have endured enough. Where is the competence Canadians deserve? We have experienced one mass lockdown as a country, and some parts of Canada are starting to see lockdowns again. How many more waves will Canadians have to endure in the next 10 months because of this government's incompetence? We need to get this country working again. We need to get this country healthy again. We need to show Canadians that there is a plan for the vaccine. Il est temps de remettre ce pays sur le rail. Les Canadiens méritent mieux. Ils méritent un gouvernement sérieux et compétent. Ils méritent un plan. Canadians deserve certainty, clarity, and competence from their government. Any questions?
We'll now go to questions, starting with questions on the phone. Quick reminder, as usual, one question, one follow-up. Nous allons maintenant prendre les questions. Commençons par les questions au téléphone. Un rappel, une question suivie. Today we have 6 questions. Aujourd'hui, nous aurons 6 questions avec suivi. Operator, do we have a first question?
Thank you. The first question is from Althea Raj of the Off Post Canada. Please proceed.
Hi. Thank you very much for taking my question. Good morning. I want to switch gears just slightly. On Tuesday will mark the first 100 days of your tenure as Conservative leader. Can you explain what were the first things that were important to you that you wanted to accomplish, and how you feel that you have accomplished them, if you feel that you have?
Thank you, Althea. I heard your podcast on the subject. I believe we're accomplishing them because my main goal is that in the next election, I want more Canadians waking up that morning and seeing a Conservative staring at them in the mirror. More young people, more women, more new Canadians, members of the LGBTQ community, Indigenous Canadians. I've been trying to reach out and also articulate how a plan for rapid tests, how a plan for vaccines, how a plan for the economy helps everyone, and that it's time for a government that can be ethical, can be ahead of a crisis, not at the tail end. And I think as more Canadians get to know me, that central goal I set at 1:30 in the morning when I gave my first speech, Althea, that's been my driving mission. And we're slowly making progress. And so for the first 100 days, I think we can see from the donations, the interest in our party, the nomination races we're having from coast to coast, there's a lot of interest in our party, and I'm going to continue to work hard.
What particular challenges do you feel you face at this time? And I'm going to say, for me, I find it, sometimes I find you quite aggressive, and I wonder if there is, it's obviously not normal times, but how you balance, your role as an opposition. At the same time, you said you want to propose things. What challenges do you feel that you face in accomplishing that goal?
Well, the biggest challenge I faced was when I brought COVID into my home as a brand new leader. Obviously, that was something very stressful for our family. But there is a challenge inherent in being opposition. My wife has often commented, you have to do more than just oppose. You have to seem optimistic and hopeful for our country, which I am. I want us to do better on rapid tests or on vaccines. I believe in this country and its people, and I think we can tackle all challenges while letting more families have the opportunity to work, provide for their families. So that's an inherent challenge with opposition. But I've said from the start, we're not just going to oppose, we're going to propose, which is why I asked for the call with the Prime Minister on Friday to propose some solutions to improve our relations with the United States, to support the passage of the Keystone XL pipeline. You're going to see a very serious approach to policy for the well-being of Canadians.
Operator, next question.
Thank you. The next question is from Andrew Lawton of the True North. Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. O'Toole. In the last week, we've had a pastor, an Ontario legislator, and numerous other Canadians ticketed for attending anti-lockdown protests across the country. And I'm wondering what your thought is on these actions by law enforcement officials and by provincial governments.
Well, as you know, I think it's important for all Canadians to heed the advice of public health authorities. I mentioned that in my remarks here, Andrew. I think that that's one of the accomplishments that Canadians can be proud of over the last 10, 11 months. Our country has rallied around some of the advice from public health officials, from elected officials, and we must continue to do that. At the same time, I've also said we need to give Canadians even more information. I've been asking the Prime Minister this. I suggested this to Dr. Tam in one of my briefings. We need to allow Canadians to make even smarter decisions. Where are transmissions taking place, so that they can guard themselves? We've now practiced distancing, mask usage, hand washing, and other things, which were the early direction in the pandemic. We need to equip and trust Canadians with more information on that transmission point, because that will allow us to keep potentially more economic activity going. That will allow Canadians to be even more prepared to avoid the transmission risk in certain circumstances. And I appreciated that Dr. Tam took my question, my advice, and I would like to see that more common, because I think Canadians need more information, not less.
You mentioned a lack of plan on the part of the Prime Minister for getting vaccines. If you were Prime Minister right now, what would you have done that would put Canada higher up on the list for vaccine receipt?
Well, I would not have put all our eggs in the basket of China. And I think Canadians should really wonder why it looked like the only manufacturing of a vaccine that was going to be done in Canada was going to be a joint venture with China, the CanSino project, which fell apart by the end of the summer. And if you look at the timeline, that's when Canada started getting serious with Pfizer, Moderna, the other options. So that's very concerning, that in the midst of a pandemic where we had already had early questions about the transparency of China, that the Trudeau government was willing to almost double down on partnering with China for a vaccine. That failed, and I think that's why we are late. When the Minister of Health, over hours of questioning, won't even answer simple questions about when did we start procuring freezers, or have we, that should concern Canadians. We're not prepared because of the incompetence of this government.
Operator, next question.
Thank you. The next question is from Mike Blanchfield of the Canadian Press. Please proceed.
Thanks for taking our questions, Mr. O'Toole. Following up on what you just said about the CanSino deal, do you think there are other options that the government could have pursued before that? I mean, we've just heard from the Moderna chairman was on a television program just a little while ago saying that, Canada moved early to get its orders in with his company. He said and that they actually, they did it when they were less sure when the efficacy of what they were doing was less certain. So is it possible that, I don't know, your point is taken on the CanSino affair, but do you think basically when they moved when they were able to, or do you think, that they could have moved sooner and started buying things when they didn't know if this would actually work, I guess? Would that have been prudent? I mean, how would you balance that if you were the leader?
I would have made sure we were ready to make and distribute a vaccine in Canada, and I would have made sure that plan was finalized by summer. This is perhaps where my military experience comes in, but you gather a team, you set a plan early, and you forecast uncertainty. So the Trudeau government did not do that. They thought they were going to do almost all of their vaccine work with the CanSino project, and then signed procurement deals, supply deals with other providers, but we will be back of the line, not manufacturing here. That was a mistake. Let me say this to you, Mike. There will be parts of Canada that will not get the Pfizer vaccine at the same time as other parts of the country, because the government has not secured the logistics chain required for a vaccine, a 2-dose vaccine that needs to be stored at -70. Why do you think Minister Haiju won't answer questions about freezers and refrigeration? Because they're months behind where they need to be. And in a pandemic that we'd already gotten through the first wave, the fact that we were not doing this earlier is very troubling. And so the fact the government won't answer any questions on any of this for hours on end should tell Canadians that they know their response has been inadequate.
And to follow up, can you outline 2 specific things you want to see in the fiscal statement to help Canadians? What are your top 2 priorities, and can you elaborate on them?
My top priority is a plan for vaccines. There is no plan for the economy if we don't have rapid testing and vaccines as swiftly as possible. We're already seeing small businesses teetering on the edge. That is leading to this uncertainty and this concern out there about the well-being of tens of thousands of Canadian families that have invested everything in their restaurant or in their their auto shop or a range of small businesses that are close to bankruptcy. Rapid tests, we're months behind our allies in large-scale rollouts and use of rapid tests. It looks like we're going to be months behind our allies on vaccines. These are critical tools. The vaccine is the hope we were all looking for. And I think Canadians are going to be rightly frustrated when we see many other countries, both G7 countries like ours, but also countries, less advanced from a manufacturing capacity, from a life sciences capacity, rolling out millions of doses before Canada. I hate to see us trailing. I don't compare ourselves to the worst response. I want Canada's response to be the best. That's why I want to see a plan, and I want to see a plan for the economy. We need to get people working.
And we'll now take questions from the room. Mike?
Mr. O'Toole, Mike LeCouture from Global National. I'm trying to reconcile something you just said and what your party has been saying for months. They've been calling for a fiscal update for months. And then you kind of just dodged my colleague's question on what you want to see in the fall fiscal update, saying there can be no plan for the economy without a plan for vaccines. So how do you reconcile that your party has been banging the desks and saying we need a plan for the economy, but now you're saying tomorrow I want to see a plan for vaccines when you know that's not what's going to be coming?
We're pushing for it to come, Mike, because there can't be a full economy, a growing economy, people working, people being productive without the tools to keep that happening in a pandemic. Those 2 tools are rapid tests and a vaccine. And so with part of our economy in lockdown at the moment, parts of it, and these are why Canadians are frustrated about the potential for more lockdowns, where we can have tools that can limit the impact on our economy, that's as important to an economic statement than interest rate numbers or forecasts of GDP. What matters more to a family? The fact that they'll get a vaccine faster or the GDP projections of the government? So we do want to see a plan for the state of the finances, which they've been hiding for months. We've almost gone 2 years without a budget, the longest time in Canadian history. I want to see a plan for getting Canadians working, helping some sectors like tourism and others that are on the edge of the brink. But if we want to make sure our economy is producing as productively as possible, rapid tests and vaccines are part of that.
Understood. So my follow-up will be about what you hope to see tomorrow as well. We're expecting that the deficit will be way over the $343 billion that we saw in July. And the Prime Minister has already sort of indicated last month that there will be no fiscal anchor in what we see tomorrow. So do you think that will be okay? Will that be acceptable if, for instance, let me put it this way, will you turn a blind eye to a massive deficit if you see a plan for vaccines tomorrow?
Mike, as you know, we voted unanimously on some of the benefits that have had to go out to Canadians to help Canadians persevere through the pandemic, to help small businesses to fix the problems with the rent subsidy. We've supported with very minimal debate. We're willing to support that spending to help people. What we don't support is Minister Freeland's suggestion that she can continue to spend with no plan at all as long as interest rates are low. That was her early indication as finance minister. That is very reckless, because all of this debt will accumulate. And if in a few years interest rates change, the Liberals are putting healthcare and other services at risk by that uncontrolled approach to massive $100, $200 billion deficits. So I want to see if she remains in that same view that she can spend without regard to the public finances as long as interest rates are low. I'm hoping that's not her fiscal anchor. So we'll see what their plan is tomorrow.
Marika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. Mr. O'Toole, on the question around deficits, as you know, your party supported a lot of these programs that led to such high spending. So is there sort of like an upper limit that you want to see on that deficit? What is your number that the government should not be going past in terms of its deficit for this year? Is it 400 billion? Is it 450? Is it 500? What is it?
Well, as you said, we have supported the programs that have helped families, that have helped small businesses, and we will continue to do that in a pandemic. That accounts for only about less than half of the deficit spending so far. What we're concerned about is the fact that there seems to be no concern about multiple years of $100 billion plus deficits. That is going to be what I'm watching for. Less this year's amount and more, are they willing to do this over the next 2, 3, 4 years? Because that is going to put pressures on our economy that could leave the government, a future government, without any options. And we're also seen as uncompetitive as a country. So I'm going to see if they introduce anything on productivity towards job creation. That's what we'd like to see.
So I'm clear then. So you're not concerned what the number is this year. It's what the long-term planning is. And if, in fact, the programs they're announcing are one-time programs versus the long-term. So no matter the number for this year, that's not your concern. Can you just be very clear on that? And if you do actually have a number where there should be a point of no return?
The number this year, we already know. It's going to be somewhere in the range of $400 billion. And that is startling, and that is too high. Many of the programs that we've supported account for about half of that. Assistance to families, assistance to small business. We support that. What we want to see is some transparency with respect to the others. As you know, the We Charity scandal, we had very big problems because of insider dealings. We also had concerns that almost $10 billion was spent to supply the CERB to students when we could have actually used that to help small business and expand the Canada Summer Jobs programs for students. We could have even given tuition assistance and spent less. So we are going to analyze what degree of detail they have on the spending. We want to see a plan to get people working and a plan to prudence coming out of the pandemic.
Last question, Ian?
Ian Woods, CTV News. Mr. O'Toole, you talk a lot about rapid testing, but the fact of the matter is there are still some efficacy issues with rapid testing. Dr. Bonnie Henry in BC hasn't rolled it out in, let's say, long-term care homes because some of them are only 95% effective. So are you putting all your eggs in the basket of rapid testing, hoping that, we can just open everything up with a 95% effective test?
Well, any pharmaceutical product, any medical test will have a degree of accuracy. And Mr. Trudeau's giving us an option right now of 0. I would take 95% certainty over 0 anytime. The deployment then, depending on whether it's long-term care, whether it's seasonal workers, whether it's travel, these are tools that can be used, and that degree of certainty will change depending on how vulnerable people are. Obviously, in the long-term care environment, that's probably why Dr. Henry's looking very carefully at that accuracy rate. But for seasonal workers, for example, for some folks in the restaurant or retail environment where there aren't risks with the most vulnerable, they are a tool that can be deployed. European countries were using them before the second wave hit for travel in airports, for getting employees back into the workforce rather than 10 days or more of being confined waiting for testing. So it's a tool we should have had much earlier, and we'd like to see more effective rollout of it.
You're talking a lot about how many waves Canadians are going to have to go through and pointing towards the federal government's action on that. But at the end of the day, the provinces are the ones that are going to put in measures like shutdowns. Out west in Alberta, we're seeing there was minimal restrictions, or not minimal, but there are lesser restrictions than other places in the country. If you were Prime Minister, would you take the hard step that, say, jurisdictions like Melbourne and Australia have taken and done a full, complete shutdown to snuff out the virus for?
No, I would do the job the federal government of Mr. Trudeau has not been doing, which is rolling out the tools the provinces need to make the best decisions for their economies. I think the provinces early on, because of failures on the border, on really briefing Canadians on the risks of coronavirus in February and early March, a lot of provinces had to deal with slower starts. We had a PPE shortage because of the federal government sending PEP to China, not taking the coronavirus seriously at the beginning. What we need now is to give them tools like rapid testing, like vaccines, faster, so that we don't see a potential spring wave. And because we may not have large-scale inoculations taking place until Mr. Trudeau suggested next summer, we could see Canada in a third wave when other countries are inoculating and having herd immunity before that. So this is why we're going to continue to push. We can't move the economy forward without this critical tool of the vaccine. Canadians have reasonable questions on why the government took so long to roll out plans for the cold vaccine of Pfizer and why they threw all their eggs in the basket with China.
And this concludes the press conference. Ceci me fait la conférence de presse. Merci.
Thank you very much.
Jeepers. Am I losing all hope in all our leaders all the way around? That's Erin O'Toole playing the game. Completely playing the game. Without a backbone. Just doublespeak, establishment, supporting. All our hope for the economy is in a vaccine. What? Take a stand, dude. Offer some sort of hope with a solution that's different from what the government's doing now. He won't answer one question directly. Erin O'Toole, thank you for continuing the death spiral of Canadian conservative politics, as in the Conservative Party of Canada. It used to be the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada until Peter MacKay and Stephen Harper had their way and united the right. And then we got Max Bernier, who I line up with on almost everything he talks about. Of course, because he's he's an intolerant bigot, right? I had him on the show last week. He was pretty frank about his positions on everything. And you don't see any doublespeak from Max Bernier, but that's a whole nother thing. Here's Erin O'Toole, a guy I really know not too much about. So I can only go with what I see so far. And from what I see so far, you don't have a plan. You're putting all your hope on the economy. You get a question asked about the economy, and your answer is, I want to see a shot. I want to see a vaccine. A vaccine's a year away. And so you're going to put all your hope of a vaccine curing the economy. A vaccine for a virus that's got 99.5 plus percentage rate of survival. Wash your hands. Keep your distance. Okay, if wearing a mask in your car and while you work out on the beach makes you feel better, okay. But it's only helping you to spread things. And I'm sure that dirty diaper is giving you more concerns health-wise than you probably realize. As soon as you touch your disposable surgical mask, it's contaminated and useless. And if infected, will help you spread it. But okay, even with that, I don't make... secretly inside, I do make fun of people that wear masks. But you want to wear a mask? Okay, fine. I'm not going to publicly humiliate you. Well, because I'm the only guy I've ever seen out without one. My lungs got enough problems. How do you think I get this big sexy DJ voice? So, not impressed with Erin O'Toole. I'm also not impressed with why the hell are you using a Sunday morning when most Canadians should be with their families, at church, around the breakfast table, at Costco, banging the big box stores. Anyway, doing things that they want to do, watching football pregame, and you're going to hold, you're genius. So you're going to go against it. It was a huge what was it, an emergency statement required on Sunday morning? You know the media in Canada is in bed on Sunday morning. We're in bed, we're watching this.
We're back
Football. Trying to forget about politics. So it comes up in my Facebook feed that here CP24 is the only one that actually carried this press conferences. Sorry, I'm not drunk yet. Can you tell? Yet. The major news networks didn't carry the CP24 carried it. And I went back and found it on YouTube and then ripped it and then cropped out of all the credit so that I don't get copyright strikes, even though I'm stealing all the content. Anyways, not impressed with Erin O'Toole. You know, I'm not prejudiced. I mean, I am in some respects. But for my politicians, if I don't know them yet, I give them a chance to, you know, tell me who they are. And this guy did not impress at all. Peace, love, hug your neighbor, and rip that